All right. Thanks for joining me on Packaging Unboxed. Today we've got Nick Longo of the Deeply Graphic Design Cast. Not only does he host that podcast, he's also an educator, a packaging designer, a graphic designer, and he also hosts the Creative Course podcast. I mean, this dude's super busy. I thought I was busy. He's way busy. So Nick's an amazing designer. He got a glimpse of some of the stuff that I was sharing, the packaging AI stuff that I'm sharing all over the place, all created by Midjourney and just a few prompts. And he had a ton of questions. And we jump right into that conversation, like right off the bat. And he asks every possible question about AI and packaging and design and how it's impacting designers, education, production, pretty much everything. All the questions that you've got at this moment, we get into those and we answer them, or at least we try to. We have a great time. I think you're going to enjoy this a ton. We get into the basics, into the complexities. We get into the outright insanity that's happening in AI at the moment. As a matter of fact, 2 days ago when we recorded this, things have changed. Today, now there's AI that's actually doing not just the 3D renderings and the general concepts, but it's also doing the 3D modeling. So turning general ideas into like physical 3D files that can then be output into like real things. So for everybody that's out there saying this stuff is not possible, the bottles that are being designed aren't realistic, now they can be transferred into actual CAD files and things can be printed and molded. And, you know, it's just another phase to where this is going, and it's happening super fast. So it's important you listen to this with an open mind, check it out. At the very least, you should be playing with AI and just figuring out how it works and how it functions. If you're a little bit nervous or you're unsure how to even get started, there's a link in the bio. I released a book. It's like $5. I'm just, basically just giving it away. It'll help you get started. It'll tell you how to log on to Midjourney, how to connect your Discord, what Discord even is, and how to create prompts and show you like what the results are going to be. It's really helpful. It's really basic, but it gets into some really cool constructions in packaging. Do me a favor before we get started, hit subscribe, hit the bell, click the thing, turn it up. We're about to get into Packaging Unboxed with Nick Longo. Yeah, I mean, we can talk about whatever. So we got, let's get started. We got Nick Longo of DGDC podcast.
Yeah, man.
How's it going, man? Thanks for hopping on here.
I love it. A whole podcast dedicated to packaging, man. This is great.
Why not, man? We do a ton of stuff, and I've gone pretty deep in packaging, and I don't think anybody else has gotten this deep, so it's kind of cool.
Totally. I've done episodes on it, but it's funny that I think when I came across your banner for it, I was like, oh, this is great, because it's like it is such a niche, and more importantly too, like what you've been posting lately has just gotten me so curious and fearful and excited all at the same time at the AI possibilities in this industry. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. So it's funny. Like when I saw your message, I think it was whatever you posted. Immediately, I'm like, oh, Nick thinks this is bullshit.
I want to have this conversation because it's like, it's such an interesting concept. Like you said, it's inevitable. It's happening. It's joined this bandwagon, but then it's also, and I'm not even an artist, man. Like, yes, I'm a graphic designer and a branding guy and packaging designer and everything. I just don't consider myself an artist. I'm in the team with a lot of my illustrator friends that are all freaking out because of what's happening even in their industries too, because of AI. So yeah, it's a huge topic.
All right. So
to say the least.
No, it's fine. I just spoke to a photographer who is using Midjourney it's crazy, right? So I'm only in packaging, so I'm just focused on packaging. There's cool stuff happening all around, but I'm just drilling down on packaging. Food photographer, he's doing he's generating kitchens in Midjourney, and then he's putting them on an 80-inch LED screen behind his products.
Really?
Right. So instead of having to go and find the perfect kitchen, it's like, he's like, I can just create it. He's like, and if it's not perfect, I can just throw it into Photoshop and just blend it with another image, put it on this screen. It's going to be blurred out. The focus is the product. And he's like, I can do it. He's like, I don't have to travel. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
And it's like,
wow. Have you seen the work?
Yeah, dude, it's amazing.
Incredible.
I'm like, I never even would have thought of that.
That's so true, man. I love that idea for, okay, I can see bringing that into always needing to find that perfect setting for, let's say, a packaging shoot or something. Or even, I do a ton of mine 3D. And so I'm always as well looking for that perfect background to set the mood and not compete and all the things that you kind of said. And yeah, I mean, now, question for you on that, is he using a license-based version of Midjourney, and is he covered? Does he have to worry about the legal side of this?
So with Midjourney, if you're using the paid plan, I think it's like $30 a month.
Yes.
And really, that's the only thing you can use, right? The free one has a limit of 25 images, and people usually screw up those 25, and they're like, "Oh, this doesn't work." Right?
Yeah, I'm already at my count.
Yeah, so you pay the $30, and when you're paying it, now you own the image, so you own the license to this thing. Midjourney shares the license with you, where they can share it on their website, but other than that, they can't generate anything from it,
regardless of use.
Regardless of use,
even quantity and impressions and things like that.
Yep, it's yours.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know.
Now, you as a designer take on the responsibility if you're creating packaging in the style of, Shepard Fairey.
Yeah.
Right, and it clearly looks like his work.
Oh, of course.
Then you have to, you're the one that has to deal with whether or not you're going to get sued or not, right? And I think that's where a lot of people are having issue is like, oh, well, now you can just cut out the designer completely because you can just put in their style and generate stuff like that. Yeah, you can.
Gotcha.
Right.
Yeah,
but
that makes a lot of sense. I think any intellectual property that's already existing or whatever, then it's it's up to that company to kind of protect them, their rights. Yeah. Okay. But you're making this sound a little more better.
Yeah, but I think we all kind of as we're playing and learning, you want to do that. It's like, oh, well, what like I just did some bottles that I had MC Escher design. I didn't have him design them, but they're designed in the style as if you would, and they're amazing.
Yeah.
Now, this isn't something that I'm going to use, but it's cool and it's playful.
Yeah. But
now if I want to design something, if I want to design a label or a bottle structure or a box structure, I can go in and, maybe look at some, type in some surrealist cues or like some cubism or, and I can fine tune what I want to get to, or if I want to add some like tessellations, I can do that. And then these are just terms that exist. They're not specific to one person. And I can create something completely new.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what really intrigued me was more the not so much design so much, but the form functions and some of the bottles and the actual packaging kind of shapes that were there were kind of unique because in so many different ways, unless you're at a budget of something that big with a job, you're not even thinking about that. You're just thinking about the brand, the label, the communication and things like that. And so it was really amazing to see that as like a great thought starter for any particular concept that you might be working on. I guess my biggest fear too is when you are having something like that, and let's say you do show the client and you get them very excited about that, but then budget or manufacturability comes in. How do you monitor that when it comes to showing and being a part of your business as a designer?
No, that's a great question. I mean, the way I look at it is at the moment, for the most part, designers are creating either, mood boards or stylescapes, right? We pull together a brief, and then before you actually create something, it's like, let's get a visual representation of the direction we're headed in. And, a client can, I always use like, a client can say clean and modern, right? They always go, oh, I want it to be clean and modern. They don't even know what it means.
A lot like Apple.
Yeah, exactly. And then, you kind of show them Apple stuff and they're like, well, maybe a little bit more interesting than that. It's like, well, you didn't say, you said Apple. So we create these mood boards to land on a direction to make sure that the customer, what they're saying is what we're hearing, and to land on just a solid, some solid footing. What's in that mood board, we haven't created, right? For the most part, we don't go out and like design a bunch of, modern packaging and then go, hey, is this what you're talking about? Right. We'll go and we'll find Apple, we'll find, a bunch of stuff online and, photograph stuff, tear stuff out of magazines, like whatever, however it is that we're building out our boards. And then we'll show them that. Mm-hmm. They're not expecting what's on the board. Right. So the way I'm looking at it is like, I wouldn't go to a client and say, hey, this is what we can do, but I would use Midjourney to build out my own board.
Yeah.
Of direction.
Yeah. And you're right. It's almost the in-between zone of the found image that you would have placed on your mood board and the first comp that you're maybe designing after that session of discovery with the client. So you're actually bridging, I feel like, a little bit of those two steps and making them understand exactly what your idea and your concept could possibly be. 100%.
And it's, for me, that's exciting because I hate putting together boards, right? I hate putting together mood boards where I'm like, oh my God, after the same image, everybody always likes, these particular things. I'd rather create something that's specific to them.
Yeah. In fact, I hate it kind of so much now that I do the first concepts and then I make my mood board to look like that.
100%. That's a hack nobody talks about.
Shortcut. And any client listening, I did not do that to your project, but you know what I mean? Where I really love where this is going is I leave any kind of conference or something or anywhere where you're getting a lot of news of how AI is being dropped into a lot of the things that we get to use as tools. And for example, the last 2 to 3, Adobe Max conferences, you leave and I go with colleagues that are seasoned like I am. And then I go with my students as well. And I see my students go, this is amazing, and I see everybody that's been in the business for a while going like, how should I, calculate this? How should I receive this? And in most parts, it's always a convenience. It's always that thing about, like you said, what this mood board kind of advantage does. And I love that idea that it's taking it, you're doing a much clearer communication in a shorter amount of time with less steps. And I feel like much more tangible.
What's great is you can do this in front of a client. I don't know how great that would be, right? Because then all of a sudden it just comes playtime where they're like, oh, hey, we'll throw this word in there, and all of a sudden you got them fiddling around, and that's what we don't want. That? No, I haven't. I haven't. But I just thought, I'm like, you can, right? You can be like, they're like, oh, we want to be modern. It's like, all right, click, click, click. Is this what you mean by modern? And they're like, oh no, that's way too minimal, and it's like, okay, well, like maybe you're talking like futuristic, like, at least. Because typically when we're working with a client, it's a founder, it's a buyer, it's people that are not in creative.
Correct.
And the terms they use are limited to what they know and their experiences, right? What they've seen in the movies, right? They've seen the movie where, the beautiful designer is walking around with a portfolio and she throws around some keywords and like, oh, that sounds like what they do.
I could do that.
Yeah. So it's like, it cuts through a lot of the BS up front and it's like, bam, like, is this where we're going? Buying packaging sucks. You've got to trust a distributor that's going to go and find the cheapest place to manufacture it in order for them to hit a margin. Why go through the hassle when you can just buy directly from the factory that's making the packaging? You can eliminate the middlemen, eliminate distributor markups. If you're buying retail packaging, check out IDPDirect.com, the only sustainable luxury manufacturer of packaging that's trusted by the largest brands in luxury retail. IDPDirect.com. And while we're at it, if you're buying a ton of packaging or you already have a ton of packaging and you can't even tell me what materials you're using or what colors you're printing, how many different SKUs you have, because you've got so many, then you really need SpecRite.com, the number one specification management platform, because everything starts with a spec. So go to SpecRite.com. So go to SpecRite.com.
Make amazing things.
Yeah. Why am I doing that with my mouth? If you're designing packaging and you hate making die lines and you don't even know how to make a 3D render, I don't know how to make a 3D render, go to the source, go to Pacdora.com, the leader in packaging templates and immediate presentation ready renders, complete with your own art, everything you need to customize die lines and renders, the push of a button. Check out Pacdora.com and use promo code UNBOXD50 to get 50% off the subscription. You're losing money if you don't use Unboxed 50. I'm telling you, packdoor.com. Awesome. I use it. Check it out. And if you're in Paris this January, check me out at the Paris Packaging Week. You can go and learn more at parispackagingweek.com. I'll be discussing AI and how it's changing packaging and luxury design at the moment and where we're going in the future. I appreciate you guys listening to this. I couldn't do this without my sponsors, so check them out.
Yeah. I think where I would be fearful with that is the what I really push to in my communication to either a new client or onboarding or anything like that is the idea that you're coming to someone like me for that expertise. And for that, I would probably really pre-qualify any certain client before doing something like that. Because I think it could go off the rails if they particularly if they see, it's like seeing behind the curtain, and my fear would be like, they would go on and this snowball effect of seeing their words come to life. You could go off the path of like maybe what your creative brief has really established, So I'd say if you're stuck in some particular spot and you can't go between, you can't finalize that final kind of, idea for the concepts. I could see it being pulled in that situation probably a lot better. I know a lot of people I would never do that to. Let's just be honest.
It'd be like 5 hours later and they're like, hey, throw this in there.
Exactly. Yeah.
No,
that's really cool.
A huge playground for
idea.
Sure.
That's a great idea.
But it's, it's insane. I think, I use this example a bunch, man. It's like, where do I think this is going is like, my refrigerator, it's got Bluetooth, it can scan the things that are going into it. And if I wanted it to, it could order them from Amazon and it can order it from the grocery store.
Yeah.
And Amazon, they offer where they can come into your house and they can put your stuff away. And, grocery stores do that, right? Where they can walk into your house and walk up to your refrigerator and put stuff away.
Yeah.
Which is really weird. But if my refrigerator knows what I'm buying and it knows how often I'm buying it and it knows the types of things that, this guy likes oat milk, he likes this, if it's tracking my likes and dislikes, he bought, these bananas and let him go bad because he doesn't eat bananas. I'm not going to order bananas again. Then it feels to me like at some point, the AI of the refrigerator will be placing orders on my behalf around a persona that it's built for me. And it's going to be buying packaging or food products based on what makes sense for that persona. So it almost seems like at some point, the AI will be designing packaging for other AI, right? It'll be computer to computer. And I'll be cut out of that conversation and just think, I don't have to shop for groceries again. I don't have to look at labels anymore. It'll just happen. I'll open up my fridge and it'll be full with whatever I want and it'll all look beautiful,
Yeah. Yeah. Almost like aesthetically pleasing too. And it's again, what you just said both scares the heck out of me and makes me go, that's incredible. Like, I can't wait for that. But I guess my fear is that what role do commercial artists, let's separate from maybe an illustrator, even though they're doing things commercial. And I feel like that's a whole other conversation, right? But for those of us that do brand or do packaging and really that's your cachet, that's your niche, what role do they play in a world where the computer and the AI and everything is designing it for its counterpart, Yeah.
We'll need to find something else to do.
The limited edition versions, right? Yeah. Will those still exist? Can I still do that?
I don't know. I know for me, I'm not letting somebody walk into my house and put stuff in my fridge. Of course. Right. So, and I do I love cooking. So I like going to the grocery store. I like, feeling the stuff. And I don't see myself being that person, but maybe my kids.
But it's also a great example of what you're saying. And that's already there, in a way, and I can see that. Yeah, I can see that being something. And I look at every time I go back to our Amazon Fresh app, it's telling me what I ordered last time. And it's this perfectly curated kind of, list. Do you want it again? It's so, and then can it be delivered? Can I pick it up? Yeah. Yes. Convenience. Absolutely love. I think that's the part where I think this stuff really, really works well into your life and stuff. But I also wonder if if this happens to be something about where we can be, if this shift happens, and particularly in packaging and branding, like have you truly seen someone be able to create a brand identity, let's call it, like in total package, all on AI through prompts?
No, I haven't. I haven't. Yeah. I've seen people trying. Not yet, dude. But this stuff is learning so fast. I think there's, and the more people that do it, the faster it learns, which is, nuts. I've seen the AI with the cross across it, like no AI. A lot of designers don't want to see AI being used for this purpose. But it's another tool, man. I think everybody has to kind of dive in. I've seen some really amazing logos coming out of AI, out of Midjourney recently. Really? It was doing some really bad ones before, but I've seen some really beautiful ones coming out of it. I've seen brand books coming out of it, but not putting it all together, like just independent. But it doesn't seem like it's that far off from getting to that point.
And who do you see as I'm sorry that if I'm interviewing you here.
No, go for it.
I'm so curious about it. But if it gets to the part where prompts and words are truly, planting the seed for this incredible end result, who do you think's eventually doing that? Is that the new role of who we are, or would a brand owner internally have some intern that can do it? And, again, like it's all about where do we play in the future, Yeah. And I do this. I'm asking truly for my students because they are in that zone of entering this industry and it's changing so rapidly. I'd love to have better answers, for them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I don't have, the answer for anything. I'm learning just as much as anybody else is. But like I spoke to Jaime Cabrera, who's a creative director out in LA. And he's a copywriter, creative director, right? Versus a designer, creative director. And he's, his thing was, this is going to make people think about the words they use. And if you're a copywriter, you're going to have a little bit more of a superpower over a visual designer, right? Because visually you're focusing, you kind of have an idea of where this is going, versus a copywriter is about what the words are conveying and the emotions that they're generating. What comes out at the end, as long as it results in those emotions and feelings that'll attract a buyer, then they're winning. Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's like a key thing is, who's going to be doing some of this prompting and who's going to be, working on this. I think designers still, but I think it'll definitely push designers to focus on language.
Yeah.
From a different perspective. And I think it helps, right? Because if you can go into a client today and communicate with them just verbally in terms of like where this, direction's going, or be able to interpret what they're saying, it makes you a better designer already. So I think that's going to be the key thing.
Good. Because I think some of our foundation that we try to teach at this point is the idea that a designer should be somewhat of a good copywriter. All of my students' projects, anything of written word is created by them. So with a lot of time spent prior to doing any kind of design, I just think that's what the future should have regardless, right? A marketer or a copywriter it's going to be harder for them to take on design at this point. But for a designer, if they're already involved in strategy and building a creative brief and doing discovery for a client, they've got a lot of those words already, or they're learning new talent in becoming somewhat of a junior copywriter, before, because then they've got to sell it too, right? That's another part I think where our role could probably still be in there as well, as this liaison in between client and end result of packaging or whatever it is. We're the guided tour. We're the tour guide. I feel like in a lot of ways.
So you're at Cal State, Gerardo Herrera, he's a professor at Art Center. And I mentioned I was going to talk to you, and he's like, oh, I guess I got to reach out to him because, he's like, I'm just getting started in talking to my students about AI as well. And it'd be great to get like just feedback from somebody else that's working with students on how they're handling this and what they're doing. he's pushing them into it. He's like, I just don't know how, like where.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the whole point. I don't think also you want to be this like, no, don't do it. Don't even try, or push any kind of attitude to them without really diving into it a bit more and seeing it. And I think, look, we already have ways that they're figuring it out. And we were exploring Midjourney. We were exploring OpenAI as well, even just for the copy side of it. And I saw it like build an entire screenplay in like 2 minutes off of a prompt, and the prompt was not as polished as I think what you were saying, how a lot of these folks have been able to take it and really fine tune it with the prompts. But this was just a 2-line prompt, and it literally started building a whole screenplay. I mean, everything from interior camera rolls in and blah, blah. I was like, this is amazing. This is amazing. Yeah,
no, it's insane. I picked up my daughter from softball practice and I'm like, hey, check this thing out. And I showed her the chat, and I'm like, why don't you write a book real quick? And she's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, just like, what kind of book what kind of book are you reading right now? Why don't you write a book like that? And she like typed in, it's like a book about dragons, blah, blah, blah. And then, it just wrote, a good section of a book, and I had her read it to me as we're driving. And she was like captivated.
Wow.
Through not just from what it created, but just the result. And she's like, wow, this is really good. This is like, I can't believe that this character is going to do this and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that is nuts.
Wow.
Like,
so, but the person that's been, does that flood the market to, okay, even like children's storybooks, right? Okay. So something like that, someone who's been, I know many people who are devoting many, many years to this and everything and trying to launch a book. And I know some that have made it quite successful and everything. Yeah. Does this make it harder for them who are doing it from scratch because someone can do it, on their phone in a car ride?
Yeah,
I guess that's, I'm all, like I said earlier, I don't even consider myself an artist, but like, I feel like we have to look at this from the artist industry. It's already hard enough to say to a lot of my students say to their parents, I'm going to become an artist. I'm going to be an art major.
Right.
And 90% of what I do when I get to talk to their parents is be like, this is a wonderful industry to dive into. It's a great time to be a creative, especially after the last 2.5 crazy years. And so I think maybe that could be the hardest part for me to kind of grab onto this and say, I want to ride the train here, is because of how much we're finally at a point where, creatives have made this thing. There is a seat for them at the table. And to see it like this acceleration of it is just so incredibly fast that no other, I think, threat has made it to the common person in in an industry so quickly.
Yeah, no, it's, it's scary and interesting at the same time. Mm-hmm. Right. It's like early days internet.
Yeah.
Right. Where you're like, my neighbor's buying Coke.com or, like whatever. And everybody's like jumping in and nobody knows where they're going with it and what's happening. It feels like early days crypto.
Yep.
But it's like, if you don't jump in, you don't know where it's going. In terms of like the book writing, I've already seen at least 10 children's books written completely in AI.
And designed, right?
And designed in our, like on Amazon, print on demand. But if the book is good, and this is the part where people get upset. If you've spent 20 years learning to write and you've, crafted this skill, and an AI can write a book that's better than your book, do the consumers care?
Yeah.
They just want the entertainment. They want the value, and that's the shitty part, right? Because I was on the Kirk and Kurt's podcast, and it's a design podcast, and Kirk is an illustrator, designer, and he was really upset with Midjourney.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, what's going to happen to the illustrators? And it's like, well, it's not my job to keep the illustrators working. It's my job to deliver a product, packaging that's going to sell more product. Like really, as a commercial artist, that's, that's what I'm being paid for. And it sounds shitty to say it, but sometimes, we do, a lot of times we weigh heavily on the arts side of it, but we're not creating art for the sake of art. We're creating something for a result, whatever that result is. Yeah. If it's profit, if it's change or,
Oh yeah. Much more than that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because it would change everything from awards to best ofs to like, like in one way, I think it would eliminate that. And I think that's a good thing in a lot of ways. I'm not a fan of anything that's like, you see an award show for even just the entertainment business. And it's like, really? You need that as well, with all your other accolades, but who would get the reward or maybe that would eliminate the whole idea for that in the first place because of like, how can you say best children's book of the year if all of them were created on that? Maybe you're right. The story as well would be the star. The intrigue, the intrigue, the interest, did it lure you in? Was it compelling? True that, but then who's learning from that? I guess it would just be the next AI getting to write a book knowing that was the award winner. Do something more like that.
Well, you know what, man? People are typing in award-winning packaging, right? They're typing in Pentawards award, Pentawards gold-winning packaging, and they're getting really good results.
Yeah.
Right. So it's already in that process, and there's things where you can put in like your grandma's voice, and it'll all of a sudden create that as So you could have your grandma reading this book to you long after she's gone, and any other book that comes out, right? It's like,
exactly. She can read you the next one that comes around 20 years later. Yeah, I've seen that technology as well with audio, and it's pretty remarkable. I guess my other question too is going back to what I said earlier about let's say it makes this incredible packaging thing, and it's just beautiful. And a lot of the ones I've seen you posting are almost sculpted, right? Like they're just beyond
they're
3D
impossible.
relief.
Yeah.
So even let's say you got one that is fully flat and just totally manufacturable and everything. Can it produce, have you seen anything like this where it actually takes it and makes it print ready? Like that kind of world where it could take it all the way to the finished print file?
No. I haven't seen that. But the closest thing I've seen is packdora.com. They and they're a sponsor on this podcast, and they've been on here. But what they do is what they're working on is versioning, right? So you lay out the artwork for your large product packaging, and then you've got like 10 other SKUs of the same thing in different sizes. And you just click a button, type in the dimensions, and it goes, and just lays it all out.
That's exactly what I'm spending like the next week doing. Yeah. Like literally 15 SKUs from one master card.
And our customers don't want to know this, but that's the part that sucks.
Exactly.
I've done all the fun stuff.
Yeah.
This is not fun.
Yeah. And sometimes too, it's the biggest part of the estimate as well, because it is hours and it's hands-on. Now, I guess too, with everything else that I've incorporated that's AI generated, let's call it even stuff in Photoshop, and how Adobe Sensei has been a huge part in like finding right things for you, font recommendations or whatever it might be, the smallest cases of these things. It has sped up my productivity, and yet I'm still I haven't decreased my estimates because I'm less time with it. Right. I like to think of it as like you are still using today's tools, today's technology. Your agency, your business is getting better and more efficient. I have more time to really make it work even more better for you. They don't know the difference. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And I wouldn't assume, pricing would come down on the value of design, right? Because it's not, the value doesn't come in how much time you take or what tools you use. It's, can I sell more product? I spoke to the guys at Designalytics, and they just did the Designalytics award with the die line.
Oh yes.
And I thought that was amazing because it doesn't matter what your packaging looks like. It's what it looked like before and what it looks like now. And did you increase sales.
Oh yeah,
right?
I saw a little of that one.
So it's like how, typical design awards are judged by other designers. So it's all subjective, and we're looking at it through that creative eye. But if we're just looking at bottom line, don't you want to hire the agency who increased sales of product X by 90% versus who other designers thought was cool?
Exactly. I think you could draw a line from clients that appreciate that, and then clients that don't even know what the hell you just said. Yeah. It could be a smaller, newer company that I think I think any designer's biggest kind of worry is a client's personal opinion and preference being too strong in the conversation or the structure and the process of a job. And so like I loved watching that because it was so neat to see. What was that? Just what dictated the rebrands of some of the stuff that they had shown? I remember one of them was like the popsicle brand, right? Was it Good Pops or something like that?
Yeah.
And was it their data that told them what to do, or was that AI, or was it what drove the brand?
Yeah, no, that's great. So what they do is like, you can do. So all right, so the brand wants to do a redesign, right? They're not growing, year over year. That it's time to change something. Design's usually the first one. You as a design agency can then put together like 3 different concepts, right? After you've done the brief, after you've done everything, some rough concepts. Then you can put those in, and it'll tell you, compared to the original one, which of these 3 is going to sell more, and what people in that, customers in that space are looking for. And, option 3 might be able to sell 20% more than the other 2 options, but customers are really looking for, the freshness and the vibrancy of color. And you might look at your option 3 and be like, oh, okay, it doesn't feel quite as fresh, and I can probably change the colors a little bit. And then you can tweak that, put it back through, and compare it to the original one. And he said it was like, if it was like 9% or above, then they can guarantee that you're going to basically succeed with this new design. Wow. But yeah, and I know like Oikos had a huge rebrand. It's like beautiful packaging, and a big part of that was like people just want to see taste. Yeah. They just and they went with like huge fruit, and that's like what the first thing that you see
with the creamy white in the background, right? And everything And again, like I'm assuming this system compares it to competition as well too, right? I'm assuming it's pulling, hey, you'll be the only one in this form factor or this hero color or whatever it might be amongst all your competition.
Yeah. And that gives you, it was nuts, man. It was really, really cool. Because at the end of the day, if we're not increasing sales, then we're not doing our jobs. Yeah. To be able to show and go, this is going to increase sales for these reasons. It just gives that brand a reason to buy.
And I'm assuming that's all basically trends. I'm assuming success stories, things like that feeds how it's telling one design from the other, correct? And that's probably ever changing, I'm assuming.
Well, that's part of it, but then there's a component of AI to it, but then there's also a human component where it's almost like a focus group. And it compiles the data and it brings real people into the process. But you should reach out to Steve, because he offers the design analytics to schools for students.
Oh, wow.
And when he said that to me, I'm like, so I can be a designer, a young designer. I can put in my design and see if it's better than the old design of whatever I created. And he's like, yeah, you could do that. But then I'm like, but if I want to go work for Sonos, I could put in the Sonos packaging and I could design my own version and put it into the design analytics system and come back and show that maybe my design will outsell the current packaging. He's like, yeah, you could. I'm like, well, dude, could you imagine knocking on the door of whatever brand it is that you want to work with when you graduate and being like, look, I've shown that I can increase sales from your current packaging with new packaging.
So they have access to even that. It's not just, when you said they had access to it, I thought maybe it was like a PDF that would say like, hey, everyone likes fresh and whatever. No, it's the system.
No, you can put your designs in and compare and get all the processing power that they have for your students.
How is it? What is the upload? I'm just curious. Is it 3D renderings? Is it flat?
Just flat images, I think. Yeah.
Really? Wow. That might be incredible to try, because we do a great project where I go to Whole Foods and I find the best tasting, most expensive, worst designed packaging in the store. Yeah. And I'm sure you get this even at the Whole Foods level, or maybe even like Sprouts. And we have, where are you based, by the way? I don't even know.
I'm in Scottsdale.
Oh, Scottsdale. Okay. We have Irwan out here, which is kind of like the next tier above like a Whole Foods, right? Mm-hmm. And it's funny. There's still those mom and pop companies in there that have $18 bags of granola, and it's the worst design you've ever seen, right? So my students get to pick between the 3 brands I show them, or we've selected, and they go through a whole rebrand. And even to the point of, does the name need to be changed? Not so much. We're talking everything, right? The copywriting and everything else. And I could tell you, I find pretty bad stuff out there, which is hilarious. But even just their talents and what they know is out there in the competitive landscape, and what having to build taste with them, like creative taste, is the hardest thing you can try to teach. Every single one of them is an improvement. And so I can only imagine if you take on this strategy with this team and see, I definitely got to incorporate that next year. That's got to be incredible.
Yeah, for sure. I'll connect you with Steve. And what's nuts is, so I was teaching it at ASU here, and I don't know, it was packaging, right? And it was 400 level. I didn't go in with like, all right, at the end of this semester, you're going to have designed 1, 2, and 3. It was more like, look, you guys are ready to graduate. Where do you want to work? And everybody's like, oh, I want to work at this brand or this agency. And it's like, all right, well, this is the type of packaging that they do there. Let's focus on that. So each student basically had their own project of like, some students wanted to work at like Yeti.
Yeah.
Some wanted to do like cosmetics. And I'm like, all right, pick this brand. Like, let's take this product from Yeti. Let's redesign it. Like, how would you do it? And it would have been amazing to be able to go, all right, here's the existing, and then here's what you created, and compare them, right? One, it's a lot of data to take in as a student to be like, oh, maybe my design isn't as good as I thought, but I've got like some actual quantitative data behind it to say why, right? It's I think that's like a supercharge for learning. But then if it worked, again, it's like, instead of knocking on a brand or agency door saying, hey, I'm looking for a job, here's my portfolio. It's like, hey, I can do this.
Yeah. I'm coming with some ammo. Like,
I'm ready.
I mean, yeah. And I love that idea too, because there are a bunch of kids that do have their heart set on that one company, and then the others don't. And I think what's cool about that, it still can teach them all the benefits of what a real rebrand can do. And maybe, hey, if I was an employer and looking for a junior designer, even if it wasn't my company and they had a fantastic project that they showed that their redesign increased numbers, it was proven, like, I'd be like, that's incredible. I think design's universal in that way, where just because you've done it for one doesn't mean you can't do it for the next guy,
Yeah, for sure. So
I love that. Oh my God, that's like the coolest news I've heard all day, man. That's like fantastic. We're gonna make it happen, and then we'll report back on the podcast.
Yeah, dude, I'd love to hear what happens. I launched a Midjourney book this morning. I put it on Gumroad, right?
You look at you little author.
Yeah, it's funny. No, I did this Midjourney book on I put it on Gumroad last night, just basically walking you through like how to log in, how to get started.
Oh,
like,
dude,
how to connect
fantastic.
like Discord and Midjourney, but it's all focused on packaging, right? And then it's like I went through like the basic prompts for packaging, and then it went into like some more complex ones and like how to organize your words. And because I'm getting DMs on LinkedIn from agencies and designers and brands, and like, hey, how do you do this? How does this happen? And I see there's an interest, but there's also a fear where they're like, yeah, I tried it and it didn't work. I didn't quite know how to get started on here. So I did this book as just like here's a quick way to just get going.
Good.
And I published it at 3:00 this morning. or I put, I uploaded the PDF. And then I had a conversation with a photographer this morning who's using AI, who's doing the LED thing. And he gave me some keywords and stuff. I'm like, fuck, I wish I would put those in the book, because that's, it could change everything. And like one of the things he says is you're seeing a lot of prompts out there where people are saying photorealistic or ultra realistic. And he's like, the Midjourney's taking that, and he's like, just think there's like photorealistic paintings or photorealistic drawings, and it's putting a little bit of that spin on there. But if you want it to look real, it's like use photographic style, like use that term.
Okay, gotcha. So that you won't get any illustrative brush or texture, right?
Yeah, because you're getting, some of the stuff looks kind of fake. It's all fake, right?
A little, everything has that oil painting vibe, I always say. Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's cool.
And and he's like, it's just that one change. I'm like, oh man, that makes a huge difference. I'm like, now I got to rewrite, my book.
He's already got to rewrite. I love it. That's great, man. I'll have to check that out, because I dived into Midjourney, and I think found a YouTube video that kind of explained what to do. I did not understand it. I did mess around with it for a project I was currently working with at that time, but could not figure out the legal side of it, and didn't know if that $30 a month thing would cover it. And I didn't want to even show it to the client in fear that, it was so good. I did not want to, I did want to risk showing it to them. And then if it didn't work out, what would we do? But on the flip side, I was able to show it to a good friend of mine, and we were able to make a composite in Photoshop, almost matching it as best as possible with some photography and things that we did by hand. So in some cases, it did help me get an idea out of my mind and on canvas or on paper or on screen in lightning fast, Yeah.
Yeah. No, dude, it's amazing. Of all the stuff that I'm posting, like I said, most of it's impossible to produce, but if I can create something that's like so far out there that nobody would ever create in terms of packaging, we can always back off, right? We can always back into what is manufacturable versus trying to just stay within the realms of what is manufacturable. And I think that's a huge plus for this. It's pushing people outside of their comfort zone. Typically when you talk to a customer, you're like, well, you can't do that, but you can do this. But as long as they know, hey, we're going to go really far out and then we're going to bring it back in, I think they're going to get some new, really cool results.
Yeah, you've really kind of changed my opinion on the future of it too. And I think back to when I remember Fiverr and all this other stuff coming out back in the day. And I remember young designers getting so paranoid. And I'm like, if you're paranoid about that, then you should be in this industry. Like you're just like, if you don't know what competitive edge you have over someone that's just smacking, type choices and clip art together for a logo, you got nothing to worry about, So I see it with the same with this. It's like, I do want to have that open kind of opinion on it and understand it a little bit more and see how it goes. And whatever else can kind of, again, help with productivity, help with process, help with collaboration too. I think it opens up a big new kind of thing for a lot of us that work more isolated and over the last 2 years are now working from home. I feel like anything you can drop into the mix that makes it more collaborative again is, a huge plus as well. Cause we can't work siloed. We've got to be more together in these things,
100%, man. Nick, I appreciate you hopping on here and chatting through this. I think this was good.
Yeah, man.
Where can people find out more about you?
You could just check out longodesigns.com. That's my main website with everything on it. I even have a link there to my class, and you can see a lot of the stuff there. And then I'm Nick Longo on LinkedIn and Longo Designs on Instagram as well. LinkedIn is one of my favorite spots. I mean, that's where I basically discovered, you, and I think it's that uncharted territory for a lot of creatives. So, again, I post most everything there as well, just for fun.
Yeah, good stuff, man. Appreciate it. I'm going to hit stop here. All right. Thanks for listening to Packaging Unboxed. This episode with Nick was awesome. I had such a great time with him. I think you enjoyed it as well. If you're hearing this is the very end of this. Do me a favor, subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a review, send Nick a message, tell him how awesome he was. I appreciate it. We'll see you soon.